Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Live at 5. Sorry if you didn't catch us yesterday. We had some technical difficulties. Hopefully today we won't have them. But I hope you're having a wonderful day and embracing for Snowmageddon end of the week. Apparently, depending on which weather service you subscribe to, which meteorologist you're listening to, we could have 3 inches or 43. I'm not sure, but it reminds me of a fantastic, the great, unforgettable Purim blizzard of 2003 when we first moved to Colorado. Very shortly thereafter, it was Purim, and it was the spring of 2003, of course. And this snow started falling on, as Purim was going on, and just kept falling and falling and falling. It was unbelievable. 30 inches, I think, at least. And they were all in our driveway. And that was really, it was very exciting. And for us who had just moved to Colorado, it really set the bar high for a Colorado snow. Every Colorado snow that hasn't been 30 inches since then has been a disappointment. But we could get another one, I think, this end of this week, possibly. If you're a snow fan, you should be davening for a healthy snow, and for all of the streams to cross or whatever they have to do as the snow stays. And if you don't like the snow, you should just get in your car right now and just go somewhere. Who knows what'll happen? It's gonna be good. But I hope you're feeling well, and thank God we're still hanging in here in quarantine. Another day in quarantine, but I think I get out of jail free tomorrow. So could we go back to the studio? Back to the Live at 5 studio tomorrow, God willing. So before we get down to today's show, we have a couple of exciting things happening this week and coming up. So I'll make a couple of announcements. It happens to be that this parsha that we'll be reading this Shabbos is a double. We're getting a twofer and then some. What that means is every once in a while we have to read not one but 2 parshas on one Shabbos morning. And the reason for that is that our Jewish year is sort of expandable and collapsible. It has a lot of variables to it. As we know, a Jewish leap year gets a whole extra month. So, I mean, it could be a lot longer. It could be 380 days. Or if it's not a leap year, it could be in the 350 days. Not exactly. It's really 383, 384, 385 based on a couple of variables. Or 353, 354, 355 based on some other variables. It's a lot of options. And if it's a longer year, you need more parshas. And if it's a shorter year, you need less. So we have to have this sort of flexibility. And sometimes we will double up. This week is a double up. And so we're going to get to talk about 2 parshas today, and they are Vayakhel and Pekude, and we will talk about those. And in addition to those 2, there's also it's also Parshas HaChodesh, the parsha where we do a special additional reading of in advance of Rosh Chodesh, of the new month that is starting on Sunday. So a lot of big things happening on Shabbos and on Sunday. Sunday is the first day of the next Jewish month, the Chodesh Nisan. And Chodesh Nisan, the month of Nisan, is really not just any old month. And in the count of months, it's month number 1. And so that's a big day. In a certain sense, then Shabbos is the last day of the year. And Sunday starts a whole new year of months. It's a very exciting day, new year. And in addition, if I haven't already mentioned, the Jewish Experience, which is the organization I've been privileged to work for the last 19 plus years here in Denver, Colorado, is making our annual matching campaign fundraiser on Sunday and Monday. So Sunday's a big day, and we're very delighted to talk about that a little bit today and to get there. Before we do, I want to also point out that another announcement, this day in Jewish history. So where did the Jews get expelled from today? Today, in the year 1496, the Jews were expelled from a place called Carinthia, Austria. There's always someone. It doesn't, you don't have to look very far. Pretty much any given day in the Jewish calendar was a day that the Jewish people got expelled from some or other nice country or city or place around the world. And I like to keep you up to date about that. I just think don't get depressed. Don't get depressed. It's in fact, the opposite is true. We should recall all that we've been through, and we should and it should give us a positive perspective. And if anything else, I think it should make us appreciative of the fact that the Jewish people have lived in America for so long without getting expelled yet. Look at that. It's a great country. I love this country. They haven't kicked the Jews out, and here we've been here for hundreds of years already. It's really, it's great. Thanks to all of you who are just joining. And if you're watching us on Facebook Live and you want to join us behind the scenes on Zoom Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m., you just need to come to 694-348-057, and that's where all the fun really happens. Okay, now let's get right down to it. There's so many things that are concluding. We're winding up this Shabbos and starting anew right after Shabbos. It's unbelievable. It's like a real confluence. So not only we'll be reading two parshas together, double parsha this week for Shabbos, but they are the final concluding parshas of the book of Exodus. So we are concluding the book of Exodus this week, otherwise affectionately known as bottom of the second. And that will be that's this Shabbos. So for those of you able to make it to synagogues, and I think someone told me that when the pandemic comes, we're already in the bottom of the seventh, and we could be very dangerously close to being done and getting to walk around without masks on and being healthy. That will be good. The parsha itself, it's one of the most, interesting parshas out there, in that it doesn't seem like anything new happens in it whatsoever. Now that sounds like a fabulously inappropriate statement to make. I mean, I don't want to downgrade the value of any parsha, any word, any letter of the Torah. But it seems very redundant and very repetitive, and we mentioned this earlier in the series last week. I think that we would eventually get to talk about this topic, and this is the week to do it. There are some really repetitive things going on in this parsha. It's the entire parshas, both of them, seem like an absolute repeat of two parshas we had ago, parshas Truma and parshas Tetzaveh. In those two parshas, the Torah gave us the detailed specifications of everything that the Jewish people were told to make for the tabernacle. All the vessels of the tabernacle, all the facets of the building and itself it's a structure in a building. All of the things that the Kohanim would be obligated to wear when they're serving in that temple, and on. All these details, and they're very elaborate, specific. It's a lot of intricate, detailed instructions for what all of these things should look like, and what craftsmanship they required, what techniques, what materials, and all of that was a lengthy instruction sheet in Parshas Truma and Tetzaveh. It's like so fascinating that Jews don't know how to, follow instructions. You'd think of all the instructions that we got in those two parshas, we'd have gotten the hang of it. We could follow instructions better. But the interesting thing is that in these two parshas, Truma, Vayakhel, and Pekudei, as we finish, the Torah reviews every single one of those instructions and repeats them. Now, that is a head scratcher, based on a very, very, very important Talmudic dictum, the rule for reading the Torah, which is that every single line, every word, every letter is critical, uniquely important. And the upshot of that is that a Torah scroll that's missing one letter, we would treat it as not kosher, put it back in the ark until we could get the scribe down to fix it. It's not kosher. It's every single letter. It happens to be that if you look at the list of the mitzvahs, we have an idea there, 613. If you look at the last one, number 613, what is the final mitzvah in the Torah? 613. It is to write your own Torah scroll. That is the mitzvah number 613. Write your own Torah. Each and every one of us has that mitzvah. Write your own Torah scroll. Now, the fascinating thing is that that's a pricey mitzvah. I mean, I know that Torah scrolls, newly commissioned Torah scrolls, don't come cheap. You could either spend a decade learning how to do it yourself, and that would be the shortcut. And then the expensive route is, but less time, is to hire a talented scribe to do so. And that you're talking about $35,000 minimum. And of course, for a really beautiful expert Sefer Torah, it could go up 75, 100, 150. So how could each one of us be commanded to accomplish that mitzvah? And what's very beautiful is that since a Torah scroll requires every single letter to be kosher, and until it has every last letter, it's not kosher. If you will undertake to write or sponsor one letter, then you can be the one that turns a not kosher Torah scroll into a kosher Torah scroll. And it's like you did the whole thing. The whole thing is ascribed to you. You accomplished the entire project because without you and your letter, it wasn't finished. And with you and your letter, now it is. So you did it. And so that is the way that many, many, many people collaborate to complete the 613th commandment of the Torah, to write a Torah scroll. Is all you have to do is to sponsor or to write one letter. And frequently, when a community is commissioning a new Torah scroll, they will open that opportunity up to everybody. Everybody who wants can come and dedicate a book, a parsha, a paragraph, a line, a word, or even just a letter. And so this Talmudic dictum really calls into question the entire two parshas that we're going to read this week, because the entirety, if every single word, every single letter is something meaningful, teaching us valuable lessons, what are we learning from these two parshas, which seem repetitive? And there are great answers that are brought from that, and I'm just going to offer one or two. One of the things that, if you look at it, because in the previous two parshas, the Torah gave us these specs as instructions. God said to Moshe, saying, "Do it like this." In these two parshas, it says, "And the Jewish people did it like that." And over and over and over again, what you see added after each facet, each vessel, each instructions, the paragraph concludes with Va'asu Yisrael kasher diber lahem Moshe, that the Jewish people did it just like Moshe said. Kasher tziva Moshe, kasher tziva, just like Moshe said to do it, just like Moshe said to do it, just like Moshe said to do it. And it's an unbelievable thing that in fact is being said there. Now you might think, well, what's the big deal? I mean, what else were they supposed to do? This is how they were instructed to do it. Of course they did it that way. But let me just ask you, just think about that. Let's think about that together for a second. Can you imagine right now that the Jewish people are called upon to build the temple, the third temple, to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem? And you can imagine everybody's so excited, and all of the community leaders get together, and and there they are, and don't you think that each and every one of those wonderful, creative, intelligent, experienced, wise, well-meaning Jews is going to say, "I got it. We just need to add this. We just need to do it this way." And I remember when we built the school and the building, every one of us has that drive to innovate, to add, to come up with, to say, "Oh, I got it. I know." The most amazing thing is that they did it kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe, just like God commanded Moshe to do it. That's the phrase. Asher tziva, kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe. They did it just like Hashem told Moshe they should do it. And that in and of itself is such a tribute to them. It's such an amazing thing. It's nigh on miraculous that they could really do it. And that perspective, of course, is a critical perspective of the tabernacle itself, because the tabernacle is the place more than any other place in the universe where we have the opportunity to make that connection, to feel close, to be close, to come closer to God Almighty. That was our goal. We're the Jewish people. We want that. And we want that opportunity, and the tabernacle is the place for it. But the way that it serves that purpose is when we follow the instructions that God's given us for doing just that, for coming close, for being closer. We've got a whole book of instructions. And unlike, me and many that, you throw out the instructions and then you start doing it. That's the that's the way we do it. We put aside the instructions and we figure it out ourselves. What product doesn't come into the house that's like that? Just today, I was reading one of my favorite authors, Garrison Keillor. I don't know if you're a Garrison Keillor fan. He is a riot. I grew up on the guy. The stories of Lake Wobegon. I used to listen to that radio show before there was the word podcast was invented. There was his radio programs of Lake Wobegon, Garrison Keillor. So I just happened to find that he is a regular columnist on this Jewish site, another cool Jewish news site, which I discovered. And I forget what it's called, JWR, I think, Jewish World Review. And it's got a lot of interesting writers and some humor. And today I'm reading, and there's Garrison Keillor. I haven't heard the guy in decades. And I read this article, and he's talking about how he bought a new chair for himself, and how he's looking forward to his wife coming home to put it together because he doesn't know how to do that. And she's the one who's going to have to take care of him and do that because she reads the instructions. That's us, that's not, and Garrison, I don't think he's a Jewish guy even, but you know what? There is something about that resonates. The Jewish people in building the tabernacle, they followed the instructions, and that's the way to do it. That is the way to follow the instructions. That will get you to the most satisfaction. And so building the tabernacle, one thing that's repeated there over and over again, and to really drill the point home, is that. Now, there's another thing. There's two other things I want to add. The next thing is this. And this is another beautiful principle, which is a little Kabbalistic. So, just bear with me here, okay? I'm going to share something that's a little deeper than usual. The greatest, the best known source of esoteric received Jewish wisdom, which we refer to as the word Kabbalah, is the most classic source is what's called the Zohar. Now, I'm not a big student of the Zohar. I'm not going to claim to be someone real well versed in Kabbalah. Kabbalah is like one of those things that the people who say don't know, and the people who know don't say. It's one of those things, and I'm neither. I don't know or say, but it is quoted. It says frequently quoted teaching from the Zohar, which says that if you go back to the very beginning, if you think about the beginning of the universe, the creation of the universe itself. So in Aramaic, the Zohar says, it says Kudusha Barichu Istakel Baraisa Bari Olma. It says that God looked into the Torah and created the universe. And what that means is that the Torah serves as the blueprint for creation. It means not the way we think of it, that at one point in human history, Moshe wrote down the Torah on the scroll, and the Torah is a bigger idea than that. It's a much bigger idea. It is a vision for the universe that God would create. First, he had a plan. Like you have a builder who's making a building has to have a plan. He has to have a vision. He has to have an architectural plan. And the plan for the universe is the Torah. And God looked into the Torah and created the universe. That's what the Zohar says. So what does that mean? So the typical explanation given is not mine, but this is the explanation given. It means like this. So we would normally think that the way that human beings are fruitful and multiply on this planet is, two parents have a child, and and now there were two, now there are three people. There's a human beings procreate, husband, wife, and they have children. And therefore, you'd think it's very appropriate that in the 10 commandments, there's a Torah commandment to honor your father and mother. After all, they gave you life. And that's the way you'd think. No, it works like this. In God's vision for the universe, there's a commandment to honor your father and mother. And therefore, he made a world that the way that people procreate is that fathers and mothers have children. You understand? The mitzvah, the vision for the mitzvah precedes the creation of the universe. Because there's that mitzvah, there needs to be parents, there needs to be fathers, there needs to be mothers, children need to be born with parents. Because there's a mitzvah of kibbud av v'em. Because there's the mitzvah to honor your parents. And that is an example of this idea that the Torah really is a vision which precedes all of creation. And everything in creation has its source in the Torah then. I mean, if you would look at a building, you would assume that everything in the building must be there in the architectural plans. Things don't like sprout in the building that don't appear in the plans. And if you look at the building, in fact, if you would really be a clever architect, you could look at the building and you could figure out exactly what the plans must have looked like. So everything in the universe that we are familiar with, everything has its source in the Torah. And the idea then would be is, if something is very, very spiritually meaningless, it would be small or almost microscopic in the Torah. And if something is very spiritually meaningful, it would be very big in the Torah. The biggest spiritual edifice that existed, that ever existed in human history was the temple. That was the place where God's presence rested on this earth. There was no bigger, more holy spiritual place. And so it has a big source in the Torah. It takes up a lot of ink because the Torah is its source. And that's the biggest thing. It would be like saying, if you want to run a flashlight, you need a battery. But if you want to run a city, you need a power station. If you fly over the country in an airplane at night and you look down, and where you see like a little dot, that's it's maybe a house, a couple of dots, maybe a town. And when the ground lights up underneath you, you're flying over a metropolis. In the Torah, the parshas that talk about the tabernacle are the power station that give life to the most spiritual edifice that existed in human history, and that is the temple. And so there's a lot of Torah there, a lot of ink. Now, I want to just take this one step further, and hopefully we'll get it done before we have to close. There's a concept that is a beautiful corollary to everything we've just said, that everything but everything has its source in the Torah. That means each and every one of us have a source in the Torah. And it reminds me of one of my favorite Sam Glazer songs. Good old Sam Glazer was in town last week for the wedding of Shimmy Blau and Chayle when they got married. He's from LA and he's singing, and he's a friend of mine. And he has this great song. It's called I Just Want to Find My Letter in the Torah. I know it's somewhere out there if I could only see. Yes, I just want to find my letter in the Torah, one that's written just for me. Okay, I'll save you the rest. But it's a great song, and that song is based on this idea, which is I've got a letter in the Torah somewhere there too. Where's my letter in the Torah? Each and every one of us has our source in the Torah, our letter in the Torah. There's the name Israel, spelled Yud Sin Resh Aleph Lamed, is understood as an acronym for the concept Yesh shishim rivavos oisios laTorah. It stands for there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, because 600,000 is mystically the number of Jewish souls there are, like the 600,000 souls that stood at Sinai. So we all have a letter in the Torah. That's what it means, Yisroel. It means to be a member of the Jewish people is to have a letter in the Torah somewhere. That's you. Have a letter in the Torah. It's a very beautiful idea. It happens to be that, and this is somewhat of a joke, okay? Just somewhat, just a little bit. But it happens to be that in this week's Parsha, Parshas Vayakhel, it actually says Leban in it. Okay, my name is right there in the Parsha. I kid you not. So if you take a look, you'll see it. And it says when the Torah describes some of the amazing spinning that was going on, because they had spun thread, the finest quality spun thread. It says the Nashim Asher Leban Osano b'chachmasa tavu eseizim. The verse says that the wise women that had hearts of wisdom, Liban, and Liban is the word, Lamed Yud Beis Nun, which spells out Liban, means their hearts in the feminine. And so their wise feminine hearts spun the wool from right off the sheep. So it's an amazing thing. That's the way we write. My family writes its last name in Hebrew, Lamed Yud Beis Nun, and there it is right there in the Parsha. Now, do I think that really has to do with me? I don't. But that's, again, we're looking for us somewhere. But I will tell you, whenever I mention this, my wife says adds the following story, that she was looking when she was looking for a nice young man, and ended up instead with me. When she was looking, she wanted someone who was wise-hearted. And so when I told her this, she said, I was looking for a wise-hearted guy. Look at that. Your name is from the verse, which means wise. Their hearts were wise. How sweet. It's a sweet story. Anyway, but the idea is there. Each and every one of us, we've got to find our letter in the Torah. And the concept is, again, it's me. It's in there. What mitzvah, what word of the Torah, what lesson resonates with me the most? What energizes me? What's my life energy? It's found there in the Torah somewhere. And this is always the parsha that I like to talk about, this concept Vayakhel Pekude, because not only is my name there, but this is the place that the repetition is mystically understood to be because it's from here that so much spiritual greatness emerges, that we need more and more and more words, letters, to be the source, the spiritual source, like a power station for the incredible spiritual edifice that was the tabernacle, that will be again the temple when it may it speedily be rebuilt. If you recall, last week we started looking at some of the contents of the tabernacle. We didn't get very far. We got to the ark, and that was it. But the point was that we want to heighten and enhance our appreciation of what that building was, so that we should continue to yearn for its return. We want it to be rebuilt, and without having personally been there to the temple, it's hard to miss it. It's hard to know what we're missing. And so the more that we can kind of cash in on, or check into it, or get it, appreciate it, the more we'll know what we're missing, the more it will be meaningful to us. And it is meaningful. So that is a big goal. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. So when you read through these parshas, it may seem like a review, but probably it'll help with this perspective. We're looking at as Kasher Tziv Hashem as Moshe, just like God commanded Moshe that we did it, and we did it. We followed the instructions, and the instructions were to build nothing less than the single most important spiritual edifice in human history. May it speedily be rebuilt. So that's our point. And then when you're looking, you can look a little further, and you can figure out your I just want to find my letter in the Torah. Dun, 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 dun. If I could only see, yes, I just want to find my letter in the Torah, the one that's written just for me. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, everybody, have a great day. Have a great rest of your night. Thanks for joining. We'll see you tomorrow on Live at 5. Happy, holy, and healthy tomorrow, God willing. Thanks for joining.